The air in my Uncle Silas's living room always smelled like stale cigar smoke and old money, the kind of money he didn't actually have, but loved to pretend he did. I sat on the edge of a mahogany chair that felt as stiff as the atmosphere. The wood was cold, the fabric abrasive, a perfect reflection of the hospitality I had come to expect in this house. The room was a museum of unearned prestige, filled with heavy oil paintings of ancestors who had built the Thorne name on grit and honest labor. Looking at their stern faces, I couldn't help but feel they were judging the man Silas had become. Across from me sat Silas, his face set in a mask of practiced authority. He wore a velvet smoking jacket that looked ridiculous in the humidity of a Pennsylvania summer. But Silas was a man who lived for the look. Beside him sat my cousin Julian, is looking as smug as a cat that had just found a way into the creamery. Julian was the golden boy, the one who failed upward while the rest of us climbed the stairs, carrying his bags. He was twirling a glass of 20-year-old bourbon, the ice clinking against the crystal with a rhythmic, annoying precision. I knew this family meeting wasn't about the upcoming holidays or my mother's health. It was about the silver 2026 Midnight Edition SUV sitting in my driveway, the one I'd spent 6 years of 80-hour weeks saving for. It was more than a vehicle. It was my exit strategy. It was a 5,000-pound piece of evidence that I had outlived the shadow of the Thorne family's expectations. "Leo," Silas started, leaning forward until the floorboards creaked. He placed his glass on a coaster with a slow, deliberate movement. "Family is a circle. When one of us rises, we all rise. And Julian, well, he's starting a new chapter with this wedding to Clara Sterling. He needs to start it on the right foot, with dignity, with the look of a man who belongs in their world, a world of status." I felt the trap closing before he even sprung it. I had seen this look before, the benevolent patriarch mask. Then came the words that made my blood turn to ice. "Don't be greedy, Leo. Just give your cousin your brand new car as a wedding gift. It's for the good of the bloodline." Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. To understand why those keys stayed in my pocket, you have to understand my father, Arthur Thorne. He wasn't a man of suits or velvet jackets. He was a man of the soil. I remember standing in the north pasture when I was barely 7 years old, the tall grass tickling my chin. My father took a handful of dark, rich Pennsylvania dirt and squeezed it until it clumped. "Leo," he said, his voice a low rumble that felt like the earth itself. "This land isn't a possession, it's a promise. It's what keeps the family standing when the world tries to blow us down. You take care of the land, and it takes care of you. Don't ever let anyone tell you that a Thorne is defined by what's in his bank account. We're defined by what we build with our hands." He spent 30 years building that farm. Every fence post was driven by his hammer. Every row of corn was a testament to his sweat. When he looked at Silas, his younger brother, there was always a touch of sadness in his eyes. He knew Silas didn't see the soil. He saw the dollar signs. When my father died in the spring of 2016, the light seemed to go out in Oak Ridge. The funeral was a sea of flannel shirts and calloused hands, men who respected the work Arthur had done. Silas was there too, but he was already looking at the deeds. He was already calculating the square footage of the pastures. I remember him whispering to my mother at the wake, his eyes darting around the room like a scavenger's. "Arthur was a dreamer, Martha," Silas had whispered, "but the world has changed. You need a protector now, someone who understands the modern world." I watched him. I saw the way he maneuvered, the way he occupied my father's chair, as if he were waiting for the seat to get warm. He didn't see the promise my father spoke of. He saw an asset to be liquidated. After Silas took the farm, I realized I couldn't rely on the family for my future. I moved into a studio apartment in a part of Harrisburg where the streetlights were usually broken and the sirens never stopped. It was a 400-square-foot box that smelled of cheap carpet, old radiator steam, and desperation. For 6 years, I lived a life of absolute, punishing discipline. My schedule was a loop of exhaustion. I worked as a senior systems engineer from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I would then walk to a second shift job at a logistics warehouse from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Finally, I would spend from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. doing freelance security audits for international clients. The physical toll was immense. I lost 20 pounds in the first year. My social life was a graveyard. I remembered sitting in that apartment on my 28th birthday, eating a single hard-boiled egg while scrolling through Julian's Instagram. He was in Ibiza, standing on the deck of a yacht that cost more than my apartment building. He was wearing a $400 linen shirt and laughing. The psychological toll was even worse. I began to feel like a ghost in my own city. I avoided the Thorne family gatherings because I couldn't stand the pity in Silas's eyes, the fake concern he showed whenever he asked how my little computer job was going. "You're struggling, Leo," Silas would say during the occasional holiday. "You should let me find you a position at the trust. You could be Julian's assistant. He needs someone to handle the technical side of his investments." I would just smile and say no. I knew what being an assistant meant. It meant being a witness to my own family's theft. Every cent I saved was a brick in the wall I was building between myself and Silas. When I finally walked into the dealership to buy that silver SUV, it wasn't just a car. It was the physical manifestation of 2,190 days of absolute sacrifice. It was the proof that I had survived the winter without burning my father's memory for warmth. After the meeting in Silas's study, I went back to my mother's old apartment one last time. It was a small two-bedroom unit in a complex that Silas called luxury, but was actually just overpriced and poorly maintained. I was looking for her old photo albums, but tucked inside a shoebox in the back of her closet, I found a small, blue, leather-bound journal. The first entry was dated 2 days after my father's funeral. April 18th to 2016. "Arthur is gone. The house is so quiet it hurts my ears. Silas came over today. He looked so concerned. He says the bank is calling. He says Arthur took out a secret loan and the farm is at risk. He says if I don't sign the trust papers, the bank will take everything and Leo won't have a penny. I don't know what to do. Silas is the only one who knows about these things." I kept reading. Each page was a new layer of deception. November 12th, 2016. "Silas sold the north pasture today. He said it was to pay the taxes. I asked him why the taxes were so high, and he got angry. He said I was being unappreciative. He told me he's doing this all for Leo. I hope he's right." June 3rd, 2019. "My stipend was cut again today. Silas says the market is down. I saw a picture of Julian in a new car. Silas says Julian is an investment. I feel so tired. I miss the farm." I sat on the floor of that empty apartment and wept, not because I was sad, but because I was finally certain. Silas hadn't just been greedy, he had been a predator. He had used my mother's grief as a tool to strip her of everything she loved. The Harmony Wing wasn't a gift, it was a bribe to keep me quiet. I met Silas in his study the next morning. I didn't bring the journal. I wanted to see if he would lie to my face one more time. The room was dim, the heavy velvet curtains drawn tight against the morning sun. "I've been thinking about the car, Uncle," I said, sitting in the same mahogany chair. "Good, good," Silas said, not looking up from his paper. "I knew you'd see sense. It's for the best, Leo. Julian needs to make a statement. The Sterlings are old-fashioned. They value the appearance of success as much as success itself." "I've also been thinking about the farm," I added, "and the back 40 you sold in 2016. Where did that $1.2 million go, Silas? Because Mom's ledger shows her stipend actually went down that month." The room went cold. Silas slowly put down his paper. His eyes were like flint, sharp, gray, and utterly devoid of warmth. "You're digging in gardens that don't belong to you, Leo. That money was reinvested into the family's stability, including your mother's care." "My mother's care?" I laughed. "You've been skimming her pension to pay for it. You haven't spent a dime of your own money. You've been living off her grief." Silas stood up, his shadow stretching across the room like a shroud. "Let's talk about reality, Leo. The Harmony Wing in Harrisburg is the best facility in the state. Private security, specialized neurologists, gourmet meals. It costs $15,000 a month. I pay that because I'm a man of my word. But if you refuse to help Julian, if you choose to be independent, then I must assume you no longer need the family's umbrella." He leaned over the desk, his face inches from mine. "She'll be moved to the state ward by Monday. You know what those places are like, Leo. It's a warehouse for the forgotten. Is your pride worth her comfort? Is that shiny silver car more important than her dignity?" It was the ultimate low. He was holding my mother's sanity as a ransom. If you were in my shoes, facing a situation where your own flesh and blood tried to blackmail you by threatening your mother's health, what would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments. "Fine," I said, making my voice sound brittle and broken. "You'll have the car, but I want it in writing that Mom stays in the Harmony Wing for life." "You have my word," Silas smiled, the monster retreating behind a mask of triumph. "And in this family, that's better than ink." I didn't go home. I drove to an industrial district where the streetlights were all broken and the pavement was cracked. Behind a rusted gate sat a garage owned by Ghost. "I need a Trojan horse," I told him, as we stood under the flickering fluorescent lights. The air smelled of burnt metal and ozone. "I want full remote access to the ECU, the internal PA, and every screen in that SUV. I want to push data to it from a secure cellular bridge." Ghost, a man who spoke in code more often than English, looked at the car. "Wes, that's a heavy-duty hack, Leo. You're talking about bypassing the manufacturer's triple-layer encryption. If the dealer finds out, the warranty is toast." "The warranty is the least of my concerns, Ghost. I need it done in 48 hours, and I need it to be invisible." For the next 2 days, we didn't sleep. I sat in the corner of the shop, my laptop plugged into the car's OBD2 port, watching the lines of code scroll by like a digital waterfall. Ghost was under the dash, his soldering iron glowing orange as he hardwired a custom 5G cellular module into the secondary harness. The tension was thick. At one point, Julian actually called my cell while Ghost was mid-solder. The phone rang, echoing in the quiet garage. "Leo, where are you? Silas wants the car at the detailer's by noon." "I'm just getting the fluids checked, Julian." I want it to be perfect for you," I lied, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Good. Don't be late." Ghost looked at me and nodded. "We're in. The uplink is stable." While Ghost handled the hardware, I spent the time digitizing Mom's journal and syncing it with the bank files I'd breached from Silas's server. I created a high-resolution presentation, a timeline of theft. Every time Silas had bought a new watch or Julian had gone on a trip, I found a corresponding maintenance fee taken from my mother's account. The day before the wedding, Silas forced me to take the car to the Sterling estate. He wanted to show off the gift to Clara's father, Arthur Sterling, a man who looked like he was carved out of granite and iron. The mansion was a monstrosity of white marble and manicured lawns. "Look at the lines on this." "Hit Arthur," Silas bragged, gesturing to the SUV. "My nephew Leo here. Well, he helped us pick it out. It's a symbol of the Thorne family's commitment to your daughter." I had to stand there and give a tour of my own hard work. I had to show them the heated seats I'd paid for with 16-hour shifts. I had to explain the 15-inch infotainment system that I had spent the last 48 hours sabotaging. "It's a beautiful vehicle," Mr. Sterling said, his eyes scanning me with a strange intensity. "Julian mentioned he'd been saving for it for years. Quite a feat for a man in his transitional phase." I looked at Julian. He was wearing a $2,000 blazer and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It's all about the long game, Mr. Sterling," Julian said. "The long game indeed," I echoed. I could feel the cellular bridge in my pocket, and a tiny device that was the key to their destruction. I felt like I was carrying a live grenade into a glass house. The rehearsal dinner was a sea of pearls and blue blazers. The Sterlings were out in full force. Julian was holding court, telling a fabricated story about a big tech play he'd closed to afford the SUV. I arrived late, playing the part of the defeated nephew. I handed Julian the fob in front of everyone. "Here you go, Julian. It's fully loaded. I even preset the GPS for your honeymoon destination. And I've loaded a special family history presentation into the media center for the drive. I think it's important we remember where we came from." "Thanks, Leo," Julian said, barely looking at me. "Glad you finally got with the program." I walked to the bar and ordered a double scotch. I wasn't drinking for the taste. I was drinking to keep my hands from shaking. The cellular light on my tablet was blinking green. The car was parked under the church portico for the next morning. The G fence was active. Everything was ready. Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. The wedding day was a masterpiece of vanity. The Oak Ridge Presbyterian Church was filled with flowers that smelled like a funeral for my patients. Silas was in the front row, looking like a king. The ceremony was grueling. The minister spoke about foundations of truth and the sanctity of marriage. I sat in the very back row, my tablet hidden under my program. Every time the minister mentioned honesty, I felt a jolt of electricity. I watched Silas's back, his shoulders broad and confident, one he really thought he had one. As the couple emerged from the church into the bright afternoon sun, the silver SUV was waiting. It was covered in white ribbons and just married signs. The guests gathered on the stone stairs, champagne glasses in hand. Julian reached for the handle. He clicked the unlock button. He wanted to show Clara the custom interior. Suddenly, the car's horn began to blast. Not an alarm, but a steady, attention-grabbing pulse. Then the external speakers, boosted by Ghost's custom amplifiers, roared to life. It wasn't music. It was the recording of Silas in his study. "Just give your cousin your car. She'll be in a state ward by Monday. I pay for her wing." The sound was deafening. It bounced off the stone walls of the church like a physical blow. The sterling patriarch stepped forward, his face hardening as the infotainment screen flared to life. It wasn't a slideshow of the couple. It was the bank statements of Oak Ridge Holdings. Red circles highlighted the money moving from my mother's pension to Julian's credit card bills. Then the scans of the journal appeared, my mother's handwriting, large and desperate, detailing Silas's lies. Julian scrambled inside the car, frantically trying to shut off the console, but I had triggered the remote lockout. He was trapped outside his gift, banging on the glass as Silas's voice continued to brag about how he'd scammed the widow Thorne. The crowd watched in a horrified silence. Clara Sterling didn't scream. She simply took off her veil and dropped it on the ground. She looked at Julian as if he were a stranger. "Is this true, Silas?" Mr. Sterling asked, his voice low and dangerous. "It's a hack, a digital fabrication," Silas yelled, his face turning a terrifying shade of purple. He lunged for me, but Mr. Sterling's security team stepped in the way. I stepped forward from the back of the crowd. "It's not a hack, Uncle. It's an audit. And the police are already waiting at your house with the digital logs." The Sterling family drove away, leaving Julian standing in the middle of the road in a tuxedo that was paid for with stolen money. Silas was left standing on the church steps, a king whose kingdom had just turned to ash. The trial in Harrisburg lasted nearly a month. I sat in the witness stand for 3 days, facing Silas's lawyer, a man named Mr. Vance. "Vance, Mr. Leo, you claim these recordings were not manipulated, yet you are a software engineer. Oh, isn't it true you have the skills to fabricate a person's voice?" "Leo, I have the skills to detect a lie, Mr. Vance. The data was pulled in real time from your client's own cloud server. These logs are immutable. If you're looking for a fabricator, look at the man sitting next to you." The turning point was when the accountant for Oak Ridge Holdings took the stand. He admitted to the shell company structure and Silas's personal signatures on every illegal transfer. Then my mother took the stand. She was frail, but her voice was clear. She spoke about the farm, about my father, and about the fear Silas had used to keep her in line. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the jury box. The jury returned a verdict, guilty on 24 counts. Silas was sentenced to 8 years in state prison. I got my car back, and the farm back. As part of the civil restitution, the court ordered the land Silas had stolen to be returned to my mother's name. I moved my mother back to the hills of Oak Ridge, into a home we built on the land. She sits on the porch now, watching the sunset. She's safe. Julian is currently working as a night janitor. He doesn't have a car. He takes the bus. I saw him recently at a stop near the mall. I pulled over in the silver SUV. "Need a lift, Julian?" I asked. He didn't look up. He just stared at the pavement. "Right," I said. "I forgot. You prefer to take what isn't yours." I drove away, leaving him in the exhaust of the car he tried to steal. Silas thought he could use family to steal my future. He thought because he was the patriarch, he was untouchable. But he forgot that a name is only as strong as the truth behind it. I didn't just get my car back, I got my life back. And in the world of family secrets and revenge, the truth isn't just a story, it's the only thing that lasts. I really want to hear what you think about how I handled Silas and Julian. Was I too cold, or did they get exactly what was coming to them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button, subscribe to Family Secrets and Revenge, and I'll see you in the next one.